doing well. And I'm going to go ahead and get started now. So moving ahead, I know that when we were talking about doing this tour, they mentioned that it's nice to hear who is on the call, who has joined. And so if possible, yeah, it'd be great. First of all, I'm a big fan of, I'm a people person, so Zoom kind of kills me sometimes, but if people are able to share their cameras, I appreciate that. And I'd love to hear who you are if people are able to say a quick hello and kind of what brings you into the world of solar interest. Oh, and for people who are just joining, we're going to go through some of the attendees and see who you are and what makes you interested in solar. So who's interested in getting started?
I'll go. Hi, I'm Tom Wickland. We just had solar panels put up in June, and I'm just sort of curious to see how it's going for other people and learn anything more. So,
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And who else would like to say a quick hello?
Hi, good morning, Lisa. This is Xin-Lei Wang. I'm a professor from Champaign-Urbana University, Illinois. And some of my students will join your session today for the tour. And thank you for hosting this tour. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm one of the students.
Excellent. Thank goodness the next generation is going to take this and push it forward.
Hi there, I'm also one of the students.
Great.
Hi,
Anyone else?
Students here too.
Good. I'm glad to see the younger crowd being interested in solar. Okay, so I'm just going to jump in and start talking then, unless anybody else, your last chance to say hello. Okay, so a quick intro to our solar system. We installed our system back in 2012. At the time, I had a 2-week-old baby. And so guys, of course, they had to get inside to hook these into our electrical panel. So they're walking through our house with big, heavy work boots. And I had a 2-week-old baby. So there's a lot of going on, but we made it all work. It's kind of fun, too, because now my daughter is 8.5, and I know exactly how old our panels are because they age at the same time. I will say the panels have paid themselves back. The 8.5-year-old child has not. We're still working on that. So it's been a work in progress. So I know most of you probably know a little bit about solar, but just for the people who might be a little bit newer to it. And also, if you have questions, you can write those in the chat. And I've got some help getting those questions. So if you can wait until the end, that would be ideal. But if you have something critical that you want some clarification on as we're going, go ahead and write those in the chat. So when the sun beats down on our solar panels, it takes, the panels actually create DC energy. So you may remember back from high school science, there's DC energy and AC energy. And then it's the job of our inverter to take the DC energy that those panels are capturing and turn them into AC energy, which can be used by households and that's the systems that we're set up for with the common electrical use. So our inverter, it's interesting because our system's a little older. Our inverter is about 16 inches wide by 24 inches tall. So it's a pretty big unit. From what I hear, and I don't, we don't have a newer system, but from what I hear, if we were to have that same inverter installed today, it would be about the size of a deck of cards. So inverters have gotten smaller, which is great news. We have a small storage room, so that would be nice. We're still very happy with our decision to put one in early, but that's kind of an interesting update. And so then we are connected to the grid. I know probably the most common question that I get about solar panels is, where do you keep all the batteries? And most people that I know, ourselves included, don't have battery backup systems. They're connected to the grid. So if the sun is beating down and we are making a lot of energy and we're not using that in our home, it just goes right back into the grid and somebody else gets to use that energy. And then, back in the day when we all used to be gone during the daytime at work and school, we'd come home in the evening and we need to use energy, but the panels aren't making energy at that time. So then we just pull our normal energy from the grid, and it's just a swap. So we're not necessarily always using exactly what is made on our roof, but somebody is. So those are the grid connected systems. And it's just a nicer thing. You don't have to have a big room for batteries anywhere. And battery technology has come a long way. So we might consider it today, but being connected to the grid is just a really convenient way to have a solar system work. So I see that a few more people are joining, so we can come back at the end and talk a little bit more about batteries versus grid connection, if that is helpful. So our panel system is a 3.9 kilowatt system. And I'm going to go ahead and share our screen so you can just see a picture of it. And so there's our roof. It's a 3.9 kilowatt system. I have a video that I'm going to show you in just a minute, and it has drone footage actually going up over the roof. So it's much better than if I was standing up there with my phone trying to show it to you. So you'll see we have 7 and 7, so 14 panels total, 3.9 kilowatts. And when we installed this system, it was almost a $40,000 system. But with all the incentives at that time, and we were actually able to get some additional incentives from the manufacturer, so we paid approximately $6,000 out of pocket to have this system, which I know it's a very low number compared to what panels cost at that time, but it was really a good deal. We have done the calculations, and between 6.5 and 7 years is when our system paid off. So since that time, we keep getting all the free energy, and our system has completely paid back. So it amazes me that more people, especially in certain neighborhoods where things are a little more affluent, that more people don't use this as just a pure investment, even if they don't care about the environment like we do. It amazes me that they don't just put these up because they are really solid investments, and electricity prices are only going up. So these panels are warranted for 25 years. So we still have many, many years of free electricity left. And they're paid off. So I think that's a very good argument for solar, but I do hope people care about the environment as well. It makes my heart a little happier to think that they do. So we talked about the grid. The company that we actually used to have our panels installed does not exist in Chicago anymore. The owner relocated to Colorado, and so they're not around here anymore, but there are several amazing companies that are still in the area. So you're in good hands if you're looking for panels. And one thing that I will say that you might not hear on any other tours, because it is a law that has changed, is we had to put our panels 20 feet back from the front of our house. So the front of our house is off to the right of the screen. The back of our house is the train. You probably just heard one go by. But we had to put them 20 feet back from the face of the house because there was a law at that time that said that you couldn't put them right up to the front. And they did that because if you have a peaked roof and the panels go right up to the front, it can be a little bit of an eyesore. So I understand why the zoning department made that regulation, but they weren't accounting for the fact that with a flat roof, you can't see them either way. So we would probably have done a slightly bigger system if we could have, and we may actually add some panels in the next year because we're getting an electric car. So, so that's something that's on our horizon, is adding to the system. Right now, the system covers, undo that remark, until COVID hit, our system was covering 100% of our electrical use within the house. Now that we have been here a lot more, it doesn't quite cover 100%. But we're all looking forward to the day when life returns a little more to normal. Our children can be in school, in their classroom, and we can be at the office full time. And we're still working full time. It's just some of that is from here at home so that our children are attended to. So at this point, let's see, let's do a little check-in. If anybody has any questions right now, please feel free to unmute and ask those. And then we'll go ahead and do the video in just a moment.
Just a quick question. Like, how often do you guys clean the panels and remove snow if there is snow on top?
We don't do any removing of the snow because of the slope and because they're slick. I mean, I'm sure there are a few days here and there that we don't get to utilize the panels because of snow, but it's not worth it for us to be on a snowy ladder getting up there trying to do that. So we just, we just accept that a couple of days a year, it's not going to slide off on the first day and that we'll lose a little bit of production. So yeah, I guess we're lazy solar panel owners, and honestly, they're made with a material that keeps itself rather clean. So we have never cleaned them in 8.5 years. It might be something the next time we need to be on the roof for another excuse, we might try to hose them off. I wouldn't want to use the power washer because that seems a little bit scary with somewhat delicate panels. So it's something we might do one of these days, or honestly, we might just kind of keep an eye on the production. And if it starts to go down, that might be a time that we would consider it, but we have never cleaned them to date. So they're very maintenance free for the most part. And as an architect, we're always helping our clients figure out the best systems for their homes and offices. And people always ask us about wind as well. And wind, we feel like from all the research that we've done, we've helped clients do solar and wind combinations to really try to maximize their properties. And the solar is just much simpler than wind because there are no moving parts and there's no maintenance. With the wind turbines, you have to go up and they're moving constantly. So, there's bearings that have to be cleaned out and re-oiled and things like that just take a little, not a lot more, but it's a little more maintenance. So it's one of the amazing things about solar is that it's so maintenance free. Okay, so now video time. So this is actually our company logo. We love helping people go greener. We just actually did a house, and we won't know for probably a year or two whether it truly hit net zero. And the clients didn't want to certify as net zero, but we did do a home that is going to be hopefully in the net zero range, if not very, very, very close to it. So we are passionate about this. I'll go ahead and play the video and then we can kind of roll back. And there is a speaking portion of the video as well. Oh, and sorry, should have cut it off before that. So, so that was the video, and that is a true that was a true electric bill. And honestly, for years and years, it was $5 and some change, and that was just the connection charge to ComEd. So we weren't paying for any electricity at all. There is still a connection charge though, because they have to send out bills and they have to keep the connections going for everyone. So so that was many, many years that we had those $5 electric bills, which was amazing. Oh, okay, and I just heard that the audio is not coming through from the video. Okay, so let me you know what, I will just do this then. So there was just music behind it at this point, honestly, so you didn't miss anything. That is my two little children with me on the front porch there. And then going over the front with the drone, you can see the panel. I mentioned again that it's a 3.9 kilowatt system and that it covers all of our electrical use for the year. So, and it did at that time until COVID hit, we were fully electric. One thing I'm gonna add at this time is that we still do have gas heat. So this 14 panel system would not be enough to provide all of our electrical, lighting, AC needs. It would not also cover a system that would heat our home in the winter. We have gas heat. So I want to make that clear. And when we design net zero homes for our clients, we don't have a gas system. The walls are better insulated. There are more panels, and then the systems, the AC and the heating are electric systems that are highly efficient, and that's how we get to net zero. So so they don't have gas. This is just our particular home. Our home was built in the 1880s. And so, you know, with a 140-year-old home, you know, we're only able to be so efficient. So moving ahead with the video, you'd still be hearing music. And then there I jump in and say, hello, I'm the founding partner of 2 Point Perspective Architecture. And then really just at the end here, I'm just talking about the electric bill. So I'll pause it here so you can see, you know, $5.48. And you can see the overall use, but that doesn't matter because when we're giving energy back to the grid, they know that. So they know we've given that and we have a credit. So basically it goes April to April, and we make so much energy during those summer months that we always have a huge credit. And then we use that credit up during the winter months when the days are shorter. We're not getting as much sun on the panels and the production is down. That's when we use up that credit, so that when it rolls back around to April, we just have a little bit left, and then we would, you know, we would start again with the cycle where we start building up our credit again during the summer. So, so does that make sense? And let's take a quick break now and see what questions everyone has. Sorry you couldn't hear the lovely music on the video. It's just standard background. So questions? Okay. Let me see, check here on my notes. Oh, yes.
I'll ask a question. Sure. If you were doing it again right now, what would you do differently?
You know, I mean, if we could do it right now, we would have a bigger system because the 20-foot rule was eliminated many years ago. And that's why we're actually thinking about adding on. I would also, I mean, it'd be nice to have the smaller inverter just because ours is older and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, other than that, I mean, I'm really glad that we did it when we did, because now it's been paid off for such a long, you know, for a while. So I'm glad we did it earlier rather than waiting. And that's a piece of advice I'd give to anybody. Don't wait another 5 years. Just do it now and start, you know, start having that positive presence of not burning coal to have your lights come on, and start doing it. And Tom, I know you did that already.
Yeah. We waited 27 years.
Well, I'm really glad you got your panels then.
Yeah. Thank you.
Certainly.
Yeah, Lisa, I've got some.
Questions?
Yeah, Lisa, I've got some questions in chat. If you don't mind taking a look at any of them, thanks.
Oh, great. Okay. You know, actually, and Leslie, are you able to share any of the chat questions, or Rex, if you wanted to just repeat them, that might be even a little easier if you don't mind.
Yep. Okay. You can hear me, Lisa?
Yes. Okay. Let's go ahead this way.
Okay, good. All right, good. Okay. So Rex asked a couple of questions here. He says, do you know the tilt of the module? Because we know that higher is better for winter production. So do you know the angle of those panels?
Yes. So and I'm going to give one other piece of information before I jump into that question. There are two main types of solar panels. There are photovoltaic and there are solar thermal. And photovoltaic take the sun from the energy and take the energy from the sun and make electricity. The solar thermal panels are filled with a liquid, and the liquid is actually heated and transferred, and you have hot water. So when you're doing solar thermal panels, people prefer a higher angle because you do want that winter sun to be more efficient. For photovoltaic panels, you're banking that energy over the year, so the angle is more shallow. So ours is closer to a 30-degree angle, which is what they calculated for our particular roof, and any company will do that. They kind of give you the optimum angle. And so in the summer, when you have 14 hours of sunlight, you're getting, and it's more direct, you're getting better production. In the winter, when the sun is more at the angle, the production is down a little bit, but it's down over an 8-hour day of sun instead of 14. So that's all part of the calculations that the company will help out with.
Great. You're such a thorough explainer, Lisa. You're just such a great teacher. Okay, Rex also was wondering about the SREC money. And before you answer that, if you're still getting incentives, I just want to mention to this group what SRECs are. So that stands for Solar Renewable Energy Certificates or credits. And that's an incentive for folks who are installing solar. And it really is a credit for delivering clean energy to the grid. If you're displacing fossil fuel energy from going to the grid, you're being compensated for that through these solar renewable energy certificates. So Lisa, I know your system's been installed for a while, so you probably, and is paid off, so you probably already enjoyed the incentives to make your system more affordable. But could you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So we actually have never received any money from the SRECs because our system is older. The incentives, it was a completely different program back then. And so we actually looked into it to see if we could get on board with that. And because when we installed, we could not. But that's fine. You know, we got incredible incentives when we did this. Everything's just switched a little bit now. I don't feel like you get quite as much up front, but then the SRECs pay back better over time. So it's still a very, very good time to be getting solar panels. And again, the incentives are starting to sunset. So if you're thinking about doing them, do them now, do them as soon as possible rather than waiting, because you're going to get less and less incentives over the years. Those incentives were there to really get the early adopters moving. And now that a lot of people have panels, you know, I guess they're relying on us to share the word and to make the case, and you know, as much or more than the incentives that are out there. So yeah, it's still great. I should also say, I know I threw out some numbers earlier, and for people who joined a little bit later, the system that we have, and I'm going to go take away my $5 energy bill and go back to the panel system. So our system was approximately a $40,000 system when it was installed. Again, we paid closer to $6,000 because of 3 different levels of incentives, one of which does not even exist anymore. But today, from what I have heard from talking with friends in the solar industry, a similar system to this would be more like 15 to 18,000, and that was actually a year ago, so it might even be a little bit lower. Just like the big screen TVs that were $5,000 when they first came out, and now you can get them for $300. You know, systems have come down significantly in price. So if you take the reduced price of the system and then add the slightly more mild incentives on top of there, I think, you know, you're still going to be in a very good territory. Did that make sense?
Think that's very helpful. Yes, I think there was a state rebate program, likely when you got your solar installed.
Exactly.
But yes, Rex has mentioned that in the state of Illinois, we have what is now called the Illinois Adjustable Block Program. And Lisa mentioned that, you know, early adopters previous to this and now in this program get the higher incentive, and it steps down over time depending on, you know, how many people have gotten solar installed. So you can visit the Illinois Solar Energy website to learn more about that. That's illinoissolar.org. Or you can go on to the state's website for the incentive program, and that's called the Illinois Shines program, and learn more about the adjustable block program there.
Yes, thank you. And for anybody who feels like doing some of that big research is a little daunting, just pick a good solar system provider, and they'll do the energy and educate. They'll do all this research and educate you directly about your home. And so don't be intimidated by the research. Jump in there, take a look, and if it's not making sense, then the installers can help sort you out.
That's right. And speaking of installers, I just want to give a plug for ISEA business members. So when you visit our website at illinoissolar.org, you can click on the Find a Professional tab at the top of the page, and you can search by area to find installers in your neck of the woods. And we do recommend that you talk to, you know, we say 3 people and get free estimates as to, you know, what solar would look like for your property. Yes. All right, Lisa, back to you.
Okay. One other thing, I know I've heard people say, oh, I have too many trees. I could never make this work, or the orientation of my home isn't correct. I couldn't make this work. And I would say it's still worth reaching out to those installers. I mean, you know, trees can be trimmed a bit, and depending on where they are, and you know, and sometimes you don't need to have your entire roof covered. You know, you can use half of it and still get enough energy to make a nice difference. So I would say still reach out and and check it out, see if the system would be worthwhile. It feels really good just to know that, you know, with all of the dirty ways to make energy, you know, coal, nuclear, it feels really nice to know that, you know, the sun is beating down on our roof and we get energy. And honestly, at the time that we got our panels, we knew that there was a good chance we might not get the second rebate and that they might cost $5,000 or $6,000 more. And we were really hoping to get it, but we had resolved that even if we didn't, we wanted to do this, and they still wouldn't quite be paid off had we not gotten that at the other incentives. But it just feels so much better. It's like if we're all talking about being better to the environment and doing things right, it just felt like something that we needed to do. So it definitely is a good thing.
Lisa, do you mind if I break in again? So I am definitely a power to the people kind of gal, and love to see solar on everybody's property. And I agree with you, it's definitely worth exploring, even if you think there are some physical barriers to having solar installed. But after you do that exploration, if it turns out that, no, your property will not accommodate a solar installation, we do have here in the state, very excitingly this year, community solar projects coming online. So those are large projects, typically in a more rural area that you can subscribe to, and you'll receive a credit on your electric bill for your subscription to those projects. And you can find out more about that on the website also. So another option if you can't power your home by the sun with it actually on your property.
Excellent. Thank you for pointing that out. And the IICA is a really great resource. It's a lot of good people with their hearts in the right place, but with their heads in the right place too, because they know all of the science and all of the government incentives. They can help you sort through all of those things. So the IICA is a great resource. I know we're almost done with our time here. Does anybody else have any questions? Anything that was unclear along the way that we can help clear up?
Lisa, I see one question here that looks like it's directed to you from Karen. What R value insulation are you specifying in your client's walls and roofs to get their homes to net zero?
Yes, so the R value of the insulation is the question. And honestly, we do calculations with our engineers so that we're maximizing that. You know, sometimes depending on the orientation, it makes more sense to put additional insulation in the roof and go not quite as heavy in the walls. Other times, you know, the walls are the way to go. If it's older homes, then a lot of times we'll do an air sealing program with them before we actually add insulation. So there's a lot of building science behind that, and we take it seriously. We partner with some really good engineers that really respect the environment and know how to do these calculations. You know, as a rule of thumb, the more insulation, the better. And when we're doing true net zero homes, the walls can get a little bit thicker, which, you know, honestly, I think it just makes it look like a really solid, well-built house when you see those thicker dimensions in the window frame areas. But yeah, the R values vary all over, and it's very calculated, that approach. The energy code has also gotten more demanding in recent years, and you have to have higher R values in different areas. Depending, again, we do a lot of rehab work because Chicago is so built up, but for new homes, the energy code is much more stringent than it used to be.
Great, that's very helpful. So I do know, Lisa, that a few people just joined us. So I was wondering if you, and we do actually have an hour scheduled. Would you mind just kind of maybe rewinding a little bit and just giving the basics of your system? Because I know we're getting into some other side subjects now.
Okay, I will legitimately like rewind and play the video again while I'm talking a little bit then. So you can see our, and actually let me, so you're able to see our home here, and I should clarify, our home stops just to the right of the door. It's a row house, so our neighbor is next door. What you'll see up here, this with the rooftop with the solar panels is the extent of our property. So we have a 3.9 kilowatt system, and that makes all of the energy that prior to COVID, that covered all of our energy use for the home. for our electricity, for all of our lights, for our air conditioning, for everything that's plugged in. We do still have gas heat. And because it's a rehab project, we wouldn't be able to cover all of our energy use with the size of our roof with solar. Our system cost, the system cost for this would have been much higher because we installed 8.5 years ago. And from what I hear today, a system of this size would be $15,000 to $18,000, and then there are incentives on top of that. So, so that's kind of the update. I'm going to go back here and pause it at the energy bill, so that you can see that that our energy bills were very, very low all summer long for many, many years, until we started being here all day long and using more lights and a little more AC. So that's the overview of our system. Again, photovoltaic panels are what we have, and they convert the DC energy that we're getting, the direct current energy that we're getting from the sun. The inverter converts that to AC energy, which is usable by our electronic systems here. So that's the energy running through our homes. That when you're plugging something into an outlet, that's the energy you're getting is the AC. So that's what the inverter does, is to convert the DC to the AC energy. Let's see, and we talked a little bit also about just the grid, the fact that we don't have a big room of batteries somewhere. We're making energy in the midday. We're usually making more than we're using. So we're just pushing that right back into the grid, and all of our neighbors get to use that, which is fantastic. And then in the evening, when the sun isn't out and we still need electricity, then we pull from the grid, not the same exact, energy molecules, but we're pulling energy from the grid. And then all of that is calculated by the utility, so that that's how we know we have a surplus at the end of the year. We talked a little bit also just about, quick refresher on photovoltaic panels versus solar thermal panels. The solar thermal are the ones that give you hot water. And again, when we looked at both just to make sure we were making the wise decision, and we don't use enough hot water to make those worthwhile. My friends who have restaurants that use a ton of hot water, it's a great investment. But for us, that didn't make sense. The payback was going to be 30 or 40 years. So the photovoltaic, the actual energy, is what we needed. The solar thermal panels, you'll usually, if you see those, they are at a slightly higher angle, more like 45 degrees. And then a lot of times the photovoltaic panels, the PV panels, as you'll hear them called, are a lower degree. They're more like a 30-degree angle on people's roofs. Now, if you have a house that has a peaked roof, sometimes you'll see photovoltaic panels matching the peak of the roof, or just slightly kind of elevated. It's better to have panels that are, a little bit less efficient and that fit on your roof than just to not do panels at all. So those are calculations that those people have done to make sure that the panels are worthwhile. Let's see, did I miss anything in that very quick recap? I'm going to go back to the picture.
I think that covered it really nicely. Does anybody have any questions for Lisa? You must have done a perfect job, Lisa. I don't see anybody having any. Oh,
Rex, I think, is typing one. Excellent. And Rex, if you'd rather just jump on and ask, that's fine too, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious on your annual production. Do you have kind of an average you kind of achieved since the beginning versus the end of your 7-8 year period of annual production of kilowatt hours?
We've looked at it, and it's very similar from year to year. The weather does affect it a little bit, so there will certainly be months where where I think May, when it rained every day seemed like the whole month. We saw that our production had dipped, but over the course of the entire year, it's been very similar from one year to the next. And on a good day, we actually make about 24 kilowatt hours of power from our system. And a good day would be, a summer day, so you've got the sun much longer on the panels, and of course, very few clouds. But also, as it gets hotter, the panels become a little less efficient. So, those June days when you're closest to June 21st, but it's not terribly hot yet, are much more productive than even the July days where you're still getting a lot of sun, but it can be very hot. The panels become a little less productive. So it's interesting because everybody always thinks like, oh, you know, those July days when we're all baking, your solar panels must be working hard. And when they get kind of overheated, actually, the energy production does go down a little bit. So so that's interesting to note. And honestly, the spring days, you know, April and May, not this May, but normal May, and September, this is the time when we really see some of our highest numbers too, just because the cooler temperatures help the panels to be more efficient. And that's something I wouldn't have expected. So it's kind of interesting.
No, it's one of those myths that the hotter it is, the better the panels are producing. So that's really good to clarify that for folks. I see that Melissa has a question for you. Do you heat your water through natural gas or electric from the PV?
So we have a natural gas water heater that was installed prior to the panels. When it is time to replace that, which probably will be in the next 3 years, we are going to do the calculations to see if it makes sense to replace that with an electric hot water heater, or actually doing those at the source hot water heating systems. So that's something for us to look into. And we started looking into it a couple of years ago, just out of curiosity, because we do that for our clients a lot. And what we find is that, you know, technology is changing, and the facts and the data about the technologies are changing quickly. So we're just going to wait until we actually need the system to do our research. But yeah, we'd love to do that. And I mentioned a little bit earlier too that we have an electric car in our future. So the Prius that we have been lovingly owning for many, many years is kind of limping along on its last legs. And so we're very excited to get an electric car. Probably in the spring. We thought about doing it this fall and decided that the spring would be better. If we're going to get a new car, we didn't want to put it through a Chicago winter right away. It seemed like a harsh entry. So we're excited about that. And when we get the electric car, then we're going to look at doing a few more panels on the front of our house now that zoning law has changed. And those extra panels then would be enough electricity to power the car. So that's exciting. And of course we'll do the payback calculations there as well. But just it always feels good to invest in something that pays back and that is good for the environment. I mean, yes, anybody can put some money into the stock markets, even, you know, and get a return on it. But when you're putting your money into an investment that also feels good, it's a really good win-win. And you know what? I'm actually glad that the word myth was mentioned, because there's one other big myth that I want everyone to know is untrue. People say, oh, on a cloudy day, you're not making any production at all. And that is not true. Just like you can get a sunburn on a cloudy day, our panels, they're not working at full capacity on a cloudy day like this, but they're still working, and they're still moving right along and making some energy. So even on a cloudy day, you know, if on a perfect sunny day, we might get 24 kilowatt hours produced, even on a cloudy day, sometimes we'll get 12 to 14. So, and if the sun makes an appearance now and then, you know, that of course helps out too, because a lot of days are partly cloudy. And so yeah, we get great production. And one thing that I like to point out related to that is, you know, everybody thinks, oh, you should only do solar panels if you're in Florida. And Chicago is a great market for solar. I mean, yes, I'm sure there's a state somewhere that the payback might be 5 years instead of 6, but it's still a very good payback. And the country that has the most solar panels of any country in the world is Germany, who has a climate that's very similar to Chicago. So they have plenty of cloudy days there. They're a similar kind of latitude. And you know, solar is huge over there. I mean, we have good friends that have an architectural practice in Germany, and they said that most of their clients are doing passive house projects at this point. And so that's just amazing to hear. I love that they're so far advanced. I wish we could learn a little bit more from them and get moving a little bit faster over here. And passive house is something that I'm happy to talk about for just a minute if anybody's interested in hearing about that, because usually with passive house we do solar as well. So passive house it's a technique for building, and you can also certify that you're a passive house if you get all the techniques correct. And basically passive house means you're creating a home that is very, very energy tight. So in addition to using a lot of insulation, you're getting the building science right, you're getting the details right, you're not having heat transfers and cold transfers that take the cold from outside and transfer it into your home through the studs and through direct connections. So it's all about making sure that your insulation is like a continuous barrier around your home. And even the way the windows and doors are installed is a more technical approach. So yes, the walls are usually a little bit thicker to get to those R values or insulation values that we talked about. But in addition, the detailing is there to make it passive house, a proper passive house. So when you have a very tight house, so you're not, in the winter, we're all heating our homes, and you have a very tight house, so you're not heating it and having all that air just escape through the holes in your walls. It's a very good starting point. And then if you add, solar on top of that, so that the energy you're using to heat and cool your home is coming from the sun, it's very easy to get to net zero energy production that way. And net zero is where the home makes more energy overall from every source. It's making more energy than it is using over the course of a year. And again, our home is not net zero because even though our panels cover more than our electrical use, we do still have a gas furnace. So we are not net zero. Net zero is the real deal where everything that you're using in the house is covered by your systems on site. It doesn't have to be on your roof. If you have a big piece of property, the panels might be over the hillside somewhere or somewhere else, but on your property, you're making more energy than you're using. Has anybody heard of Passive House before? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up at least. So yeah, it's nice. It's a nice system. And I will say, because we also do a lot of LEED certified homes and projects, and anytime you're using a system to quantify things, it just keeps everyone on track. So when it's like, oh, we really want this thing, and it's just going to make it a little less energy efficient, it's easy to do that if you're not tracking and not using a system. Whereas if you have the system, you say, you know what, the size of that window is going to kill our passive house certification. So let's figure out how to make it a little bit smaller, but still bring in all the light that you want. Let's move it up a foot. Let's add another small window on the side of the house to get light into that room. And we think about it more holistically instead of just, okay, make the window bigger and let's go. So the systems do really enforce or incentivize people to keep their values going throughout the course of the design of a project.
So Lisa, there's another question taking a slightly different turn. The question being asked is, did you see a production dip with the high altitude forest fire particulates? Don't know. Were you able to discern any effects of your production?
That is a good question. We did not notice. I know in other parts of the world, last winter there were fires, and we did not notice any changes based on that. It is hard to notice though, because the dips would be so subtle, that you'd really have to calculate the weather as well and say, hey, we had a dip in a certain month, but was it hotter or colder, or were there more days of sunshine? So we have not noticed that. So that means that if there was a dip, that it was not terribly significant. There may well have been a little bit of one. I just don't know. You have to look back. How many days of sunshine were there? How many hours of sunshine were there? And those are things that we don't have the time to analyze regularly. I'm sure some people, the very scientific minds, would love to analyze that more regularly, but we've got 2 small children and a business to run, so we don't have the bandwidth to do that as much as actually my husband would probably enjoy those calculations a lot.
So I just wanted to mention, thank you, Lisa. I just wanted to mention to the folks that have not joined a little bit later, you can type any of your questions that you might have for Lisa in the chat, or everybody is muted, but you have the ability to unmute yourself. So please feel free now if you have a question to either type it in or just unmute and ask Lisa directly.
That is a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. And yes, feel free to do that. Oh, I think Rex has one more.
Yeah, just an update, Lisa, on the electric car. So all my clients that I install solar on have electric cars, including I have 2 electric cars.
Nice.
One way to supplement the electricity that goes to your car instead of your house is to go on to real-time price and charge your cars at night, as you should be doing anyway, just to save the grid. Because if everybody jumps on during the day when the air conditioner is running, we'll probably bring the grid down, you know, if enough cars jumped on at that time. So when you charge at night, you can use real-time price and get your price of electricity down to about 8 cents versus 15 cents for me personally. And then when you have solar, you can reduce that capacity charge that we all pay. Most residential customers don't realize it, but it's in the energy supply charge. Everybody in the PJM territory here, from here to Washington, D.C., 13 states, all pay capacity charge, as you probably know. So it shows up on commercial clients' bills as demand charge. But on our bill, it's hidden away. So most people don't know about it. So anyway, real-time price with the solar combination, I call it the peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I love that. Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, that's good.
Literally, we're getting the electrical hookup ready right now because we thought we were going to do the electric car this fall, and then we switched some things around. So we will definitely have to look into that.
That's super. All right. Does anybody have any other questions or thoughts for Lisa? Lisa, I really appreciate the thoroughness of your presentation. I think it's been really helpful, and I'm very excited for everybody. We had such a nice audience. 20 folks joined us today at the top of the program. This is one of, you guys probably already know, 10 virtual solar tours this year. This is an annual event that ISBA does, and typically, of course, we're out and about. But today we're in front of the computer screen, and actually this is a little bit, I don't know, seems a little more intimate that we're able to have people, see each other, visit with each other a bit, and then also be able to ask their questions directly to somebody who's already powered by the sun. So just looking at the chat to see if there's another, people are thanking you.
Oh, thank you all for being here. I wish you could have come by the house. I usually bake cookies on this day, so the house smells good and you get some treats, but next year.
Yes, next year, a whole different ball game. So thank you again, Lisa, for taking the time and explaining how solar works and how your family is enjoying the benefits of being solar powered, and of you being an early adopter, and are able to really let people know that this is definitely a path that they would want to take.
Excellent. Well, thank you to the ISCA for all the coordination to put this on. I know it takes months of preparation and a lot of hard work, and there's so much knowledge behind your organization as well. So thank you very much. And thanks to everyone who joined us today. Really appreciate you being here. And I hope there's some people that decide to do solar after this day's tour.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.